Good morning. It's Tuesday, and it is one of my favorite times of the week. It's the Tim and Tim show. What's up, Tim Vest? How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Hey, is it your favorite time of the week because you get to see this? Is that
Ah,
this?
if I actually, I think I need to see more of it. It's just you got a nice name. I think it's got a good ring to it.
Oh yeah, that's it. That vest name is pretty awesome, right?
Kenny
Um,
V and Timmy V, man. What can I say? Well,
oh,
all right. So this week in making moves, we really want to make a quick announcement for those that haven't heard yet. Tim and I are putting on an event in November at the Porsche Driving Experience. We're gonna. Oh, that was not coordinated, but that worked out well. We're going to be driving Porsche 911s on the track. Myself and Tim will obviously be speaking at the event. Sam Silverman will be there, and we are working on one other guest, and it's going to be a really fun event. So if you're interested in that, it's going to be November 9th, 18th and 19th. Reach out to either one of us, and we can talk to you a little bit more about the details for early bird. We haven't posted about it publicly a whole lot yet, but those have listened to this show do know that it's coming because we talk about it every now and then. Also, it's been a very exciting week. We had our September group of our coaching class start yesterday, and we had my most favorite week. We were talking, about our puzzle pieces, and I just absolutely love doing that because I feel like being able to make a connection with people and make an impact in their lives is really something important and special to me. So super excited about that. But one thing that comes up all the time, and especially yesterday in our coaching class, was Tim, how do you do so many deals that you do? And I have to say, I give 100% of the credit, maybe 90% of the credit here to Tim Vest. He has built this incredible relationship with like maybe 5 or 6 different brokers that just really keep our pipeline full. And we were kind of talking about it yesterday, and I was like, man, I think that this would make a really good episode. So we should talk about this publicly. So how do we do our deals and how do we get so much pipeline? Well, you just need to get to invest in your life, and that's easy. All right, show's done. Thanks. Bye.
and if you, there you go. And it's funny that we're talking about this. And guys, seriously, we didn't plan this. Like Tim told me this morning, hey, I think we're going to talk about this, and which is kind of funny because I'm actually leaving in a little bit to head to Cincinnati. I'm talking at Mike's Burr 360 conference,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm actually presenting on this topic, deal flow,
Oh,
finding
are you? Oh, I
approaches.
didn't even know.
Yeah,
I mean, I knew you were going
yeah,
to be there, but I didn't know what you were talking about.
yeah. So guys, like if you want the secret formula, I'm actually going to open up the vault and give it to you.
Nice.
And here's the secret formula: hit the pavement. There
Yeah,
it is.
man,
Yeah.
that's the truth. Yeah, so we were talking about how do we keep our pipeline full? And one thing that I harp on, and I know that if you listen to this show regularly, you know that I harp on picking a market. I know a lot of people in here either are there's a wide gambit of people that listen to this. Either you're a first timer trying to get into your first deal, or you've been doing deals forever and you're trying to figure out how to get that conveyor belt to continue flowing, right? First and foremost, you need to pick the market that you are in, right? And not saying physically in, but where you're in buying your properties at.
Right.
When Tim says you need to hit the road, go there. Make connections with the people that are bringing you deals. You go look at a property, even if you don't want to buy it. Just go spend some time, get face to face with the broker that's presenting the deal, because you have to work on that personal relationship. Because if you don't build a relationship, they're not going to feel like connected to you or anything, and they're not gonna want to work with you. Like real estate, and like God, I mean, I feel like I'm a broken record here because we talk about it and everyone talks about it all the time. But real estate is a relationship business,
Yeah.
and it's very hard to build a relationship with someone by just talking to them on the phone or emailing or texting. Like you got to take it a step further. You got to hit the road and you got to go like meet these people.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, that's huge. That's key. So like you said, like pick a market. Because I tell people all the time, I spent I don't know what 6 7 months just like banging my head against the wall. Because at first, I had this idea like if I pick 50 markets, then I have way more opportunity to get something done. The problem is I don't know jack squat about any particular market. I know the high level, what you can Google in 5 seconds, that kind of thing, but I don't know street by street. And I'll tell you, the one that kind of gave me that aha moment, and this isn't a knock on this market, it's just a knock on me and my inability to understand it, was Memphis, Tennessee. I
Mm.
there's so much opportunity in Memphis, Tennessee, if you know that market. But you have to be very careful in that market because things can change very quickly street by street. And I had a call like Tim's talking about with a broker, made a really good relationship with a broker there. His name's Steve, got on the phone with him. We had a very long conversation and he told me, I mean, this is a guy trying to sell deals, right? He told me, he was like, "Hey man, I don't think you know this market well enough to stay out of trouble."
Mm.
And that was just kind of like a wow, like no kidding, right? Like same thing. I've been looking in Houston and Tulsa and Memphis and I don't know where, Huntsville, and I mean you name it, right? And I just didn't know those markets.
Oh, I forget. You spent a ton of time down in Huntsville, Alabama. I forgot that was way back.
Yeah, awesome market, by the way, guys. Awesome, awesome market. And the thing is I just Huntsville just wasn't close enough for me to get to and spend time in the way I needed to spend time into something. So, like you said, pick a market. I finally was like, you know what, I'm going to pick something. I did the whole 4 hour thing, right? That's when I
Mhm.
came up with my 4 hours. I said, I'm going to basically put a pin in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm going to draw a circle 4 hours from Charlotte, North Carolina. That's what I'm going to focus on.
Mhm.
Hey, and that brings up a point, guys. Like sometimes a market's not Charlotte or Raleigh or Winston-Salem or anything like that. Sometimes your market is 4 hours from your house.
Mhm.
Something you can spend time in, drive by, walk the streets, things like that easily. And that's what we started doing. We started focusing on that. And if you look at like our growth, most of everything that we have is kind of in that in that circle. Um,
It's funny. I had a conversation literally yesterday with a potential investor, and they said one of the reasons why they were calling to talk to me specifically was because they wanted to buy in the Carolinas. And Tim and I, we live in the Carolinas, and he heard our story about how Tim's over on the west side in Charlotte, and I'm on the east coast and over in Wellington, and we pretty much canvass North and South Carolina and like Savannah, Georgia, pretty heavily. And he said that the number one thing he doesn't really, I thought this was actually pretty amazing. He said the number one thing he doesn't look at is where the market is, right? He says there's so many good markets out there, but the number one thing is having an operator that knows the market better than he does. And
right.
that's why he only invests into deals that the operator is local, like within that 3 to 4 hour driving distance. And I thought that was really, I don't know why it just kind of took me back. It kind of hit me differently yesterday for some reason because I was just like, huh, maybe that is why we've had so much success, is because we've narrowed down and identified the markets that we have a competitive advantage in. And the competitive advantage is in the Carolinas. Like, Tim, you've lived here your whole life. Never,
Mhm.
you know North Carolina better than anybody that I know of, right? And then, we have other partners that live down in the Charleston area, and they know the Charleston market and Somerville like backside of their hand. So partnering with those types of people are critical and crucial to your success. And I could see somebody putting in the comments, but it's not there now. But Tim, I don't live in a good market to invest in like the Carolinas, Florida, and Texas. And my answer to you is you don't have to, but you
No.
do have to partner with people that are in those markets. And it's the whole who not how principle, right? Is finding people that are going to be in your network that you enjoy talking with, that you can rely on and depend on, but maybe they're local in the market. And something that kind of gets breezed over, and I'm going to truthfully, like it does, is getting breezed over is boots on the ground. Everyone thinks that this is really not an important role, but I can not stress enough that the boots on the ground partner is probably one of the more critical partners because they're going to be able to identify that street by street basis that you should or should not be buying on. They're going to know like the path of progress. They're going to know the people in the area that can do the job and get the things done, and they're going to be able to build a relationship. So don't overlook on that boots on the ground partner.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you're right. Like, because guys, listen, this is just one way, right? This is what's worked for
Mhm.
us. There's more than one way to skin that cat. And Tim's right. I mean, one of the guys, I do LP investments, and one of the groups that I invest with, and the guy I have a relationship with in that group, he's nowhere near that market, but he's taken the strategy of exactly what Vitali's saying is he brings his piece, which he can do remotely, and then he's partnered with a group that's in that market and knows it really, really, really well. They're probably one of the most successful operators I know of in the Houston area, um, and they've done a great job there. And
Mhm.
the guy that I have a relationship with in that group's probably 1,500 miles away.
Yeah.
Um, and then what's kind of worked with for Vitality and me is we're the boots, right? Like we're here and we know these markets, and we also have partners in our deals that are
Mhm.
500, 600, 700 miles away.
Mhm.
But this works. And the other one other thing I would say, and a little shout out to one of the guys in our Making Moves community, Josh Harms. I hope it's okay if I bring your name up. Sometimes I think people don't give their markets enough credit. you know
Ooh, I love where
it,
you're going with this.
it
Yeah.
doesn't it does not have to be some
Mhm.
market where people own, I mean, where there's 100,000 people. It can be small markets, but you can be the big fish in that little pond and do very, 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 very well. So don't discredit your right outside your own back door, no matter how small it is.
It's funny that you bring that up because I love that the path that this conversation is about to go down with that, because I think that the international investor I was talking with is specifically talking about a scenario like that. You don't have to be in a big, huge market, but you do have to know the market better than anybody else.
Right.
So he only invests with operators that are local. And Josh Harms, great example of small town guy that's a big fish in a small pond, right? Because he's now that he's kind of built a reputation and a track record for himself, he people bring deals to him. He attracts money and deals to him, and he's able to sell or finance almost everything he touches. It's rather remarkable, and I'm a little envious because I want to do something like that as well. But it's just a different opportunity, right? Because there's so many ways to make money in this industry. You don't have to fit the mold of buying in the major metro markets in order to be successful, right? I mean, obviously, successful depends on your definition of success, but you know where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, and it's, there's opportunity everywhere. You just got to know it well enough to find it. That's, and, Josh is a huge example of that. And, all credit to that guy, because man, he's a go-getter. But you're absolutely right. I mean, it's okay to find some of the stuff in the smaller markets. You just got to understand it. And then you got to understand the people that you're going to try to partner with to get it done. Like we have something right now that is sitting in the Carolinas that we're closing on here in a few days. That's in a smaller market. And I will say that folks outside of the Carolinas struggle to kind of understand how
mhm.
stable a deal it is. But the folks in the Carolinas that see it, they're like, man, I like that area. I'm in,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
they,
and they
they
see the
know it.
trajectory. They know the
Yeah.
path of progress. It's funny to see how the conversations go with investors on that specific deal,
Yeah.
with it
Yeah.
being a small market, and we're like, "Guys, like, well, I get it's a small market, but everything starts as a small market." And when you're talking coastal Carolinas, everything you buy anything in coastal Carolina, you're gonna do well, right, in time, especially with the demographic shift of people moving south and moving to the Carolinas. And my favorite term are the halfbacks. The New
Halfbacker.
Yorkers that move down to Florida realize it's too hot down there, and then they move halfway back to New York and land in South Carolina.
Yeah.
So the population growth is absolutely incredible. So really excited about that deal. But yeah, man, I mean, it's somebody else in a Facebook user here said that smaller market, higher cap rates. Yeah, like I love that. Higher cap rates are great. It's not as much appreciation over longer hold, but the cash flow itself is going to be higher because of the higher cap rate, right? Because you're
Yeah.
going to have a delta between your purchase, your operating cap rate and your debt service, right? So that delta is going to be your quarterly cash flow, however you end up paying yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, definitely more of a long-term buy and hold strategy, which real estate is typically known for, buying and holding for a long period. In a lot of the syndications that we do, the goal is to get in and out within 5 to 7 years. You force the appreciation, let it cash flow for a little while, and then get out, right? And that's you keep the velocity of money moving so that you keep scaling up, which is important. But again, like what Tim's saying, I mean, there's a million ways to cut this cake. It just depends on what fits for you, your market, your goals, your strategy, and your investors.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, higher cap rates. Sometimes it's more of a value add and
Mm,
cash flow. But hey, real estate's an asset, right? And like any asset, you want to kind of diversify across depending on your
mhm,
situation. And quite frankly, I kind of like the idea of like, hey, I'm going to go buy this one over here, and it cash flows not as well, but it cash flows. But the appreciation 5 to 8 years out is amazing. Let
mhm.
me go get two of those, and then let me throw in one of these, higher cash flow, lower appreciation deals because
Yep.
we all got to eat, right? We all got to
Mhm.
put food on the table today.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I'm a big fan of that. I practice that. We practice what we preach. I bought that 24 unit property. It appraised at an 8% cap rate, which is still rather amazing. I still don't know how that happened, but because I think that is ridiculously high for a South Carolina market. But um, yeah, so we do a lot of deals. Like we have something in Charlotte, we have something in Raleigh. We have a lot of Charleston stuff going on. We have a lot of various deals that are in high growth equity markets. And the goal is to take that equity and move it into something that's more of a long-term hold that creates more cash flow, right? Because yeah, I mean, I was having this conversation actually with somebody else, the net worth and cash flow, like what's more important? And I'm like, well, both are important. But actually, you know what? This conversation was with Josh Harbs about how net worth is cool, but you can't do anything with it until you liquidate it, and that presents its own problems and things like that. But at the end of the day, man, if you haven't talked with Josh Harms, I know we're talking him up right now, but you got to reach out to that guy because
yeah, he's great.
he's got a depth of knowledge and such a good mindset. Man, I love that guy. He's great. Um,
I'm just chuckling because I was actually having a conversation last week with I'm in another group, the Tribe of Millionaires thing or whatever,
mhm.
and he was I was having a conversation with a guy, and he's like, yeah, my net worth, I went from like 1 million to like 4.5 million on paper or whatever, and he goes, it's funny, I don't feel like I'm worth 4.5 million. He's
Yeah,
like, it's because it's like you said, it's all on
can't
paper.
do
I haven't
anything.
cashed it in.
Right, right. It's
I
paper
can look
money.
at it and be like, cool, I'm a millionaire.
Yeah, no, and Michael brings up a good point. Like, yes, your higher net worth gets you bigger loans, but
Yeah.
what Michael you might not have considered is the higher the net worth, the more liquidity you need for those bigger loans. So I actually had a call with one of my mentors, and I was asking him about liquidity requirements and how does he deal with that? Because I know that every time we close a deal, my net worth is skyrocketing, but my liquidity is not keeping up. So
Right.
it's having those conversations with people in your network to figure out what to do with them. But sorry, we're getting way distracted because we were supposed to be talking about like deal flow and
Deal
pipeline.
flow.
All of this is important, right? And all flows into everything. I mean, all of the nothing that we have said today is not important. Everything is important. I can kind of get distracted though when we start talking about other
But
things. But
but yeah, deal flow. Pick your market.
yeah,
When you pick a market, and guys, like look at it as a long term thing. Like if you're in this thing for if you're in this thing for 10 years, you don't have to stay in the same market for 10 years because we're expanding.
it's cyclical.
Yeah, we're expanding. So we started here. We did a bunch of things here, and now we're starting to creep out into more like the 6 hour range, right? Like 6 hours
Mhm.
out of this circle, and it's because we've created. We're getting efficient within the 4 hour circle, so we're expanding out a little bit, and now we're starting to learn some new markets. But we're spending time in them, and we're getting to know them while we keep the same relationships in the Carolinas and stuff really really tight.
Mhm.
And that's one of the biggest things that I kind of tell folks all the time is, hey, when you build those relationships, prioritize them. So when you see a call come in from them,
Yes.
make sure you take it. Or if you can't take it right then and there, make sure you follow up with them. Don't let it
Ooh,
hang out there.
one
You know?
thing that I liked that I actually did was when people like calls that come in that I know I need to answer, I changed on my iPhone how you can hit message, you can change the different script responses. Instead of I can't talk right now, I made it a little more personal so it
Hmm.
feels better when somebody receives that text. But my response to people, and normally this is the case, is hey, I'm on the other line. I'll call you back when I'm freed up, or something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't want people to feel like I'm hitting the FU button and send them right to voicemail. But I do want them to acknowledge that, hey, I realize that you called. I'm sorry, I'm busy right now, but I will call you back. I think that that's important because you're trying to maintain those relationships or at least build those relationships with people.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Being able to, creating those 4 or 5 relationships that are really, really key to you, and then making sure that you value them basically, right?
Yeah.
I think that's key, and like that's kind of how Tim and I built the Making Moves community, was this whole like tighter knit, closer, more intimate relationships.
Hmm.
We're not trying to be a community of 1,000 people. We're trying to be a community of like 100 really, really tight knit folks,
Yeah.
and who all want to do deals together. And when they call, we pick up the phone. That
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Right.
Um,
But yeah, so in terms of deal flow, with picking up the phone and answering the call and identifying your markets and things like that, it kind of I want to comment on what Kendall Robinson's saying here, is where he's close, but it's hard to pull the trigger, right? I think when you're feeling that, that's the put up or shut up moment. I mean, submitting an LOI at the end of the day is not it's non-binding, right? So submit the LOI. There's literally no harm, no foul. Like exercise that muscle and do it. And also, the brokers are going to like you better the more offers you submit, because they're they have to bring something to the seller to show them that they're doing their job. And without getting an offer, they're not doing their job technically, right? And we had a conversation with another coaching student yesterday, or maybe last week or whatever. But basically, he was trying to talk about, he wants to do more deals. And I said, how many deals are you looking at? And he was like, a couple a week. I said, cool, that's good. That's great. Like, how many offers are you submitting? He said, none. It's like, you literally cannot buy any property without submitting offers.
yeah,
And if you're feeling nervous and you're afraid to pull the trigger, Kendall, or anybody listening this, you need to talk to somebody that has more experience that you trust, so that you can say, hey, I think I have a good deal here. I think I want to put an offer in. I'm a little nervous. Can you look it over? And potentially, if it does turn out to be something, would you like to work with me on the deal? It's really important. I mean, that's why we built our community, Making Moves community, of our coaching students and stuff like that, because we want to give them that confidence in order to submit those offers and know that they're going to be able to perform. And in full disclosure, like, we don't say, hey, we're going to do this for you. No, we're going to help you with it, but it's your responsibility to get it done at the end of the day, right?
yeah, yeah,
So that's an important distinguishing. It's important to tell the difference between those two things.
yeah,
But having a network of people that can help support you when you're feeling that nervousness or that pit in your stomach, because you don't really know what to do because you're not seasoned, is critical to your success. Mike Izzo straying off the topic. Love the cat. I mean, hey, at the end of the day, Tim and I, we just do this because we love it.
it's
Like, we
just
want
a
to talk
chat.
about we
We're
want to
just
talk about what's
chatting.
going on in our lives. We want to talk about what's going through our brains. And, most people just want to sit in and listen to a conversation with people that are doing stuff and seeing kind of the impact of what changes in the markets and things that, as we're growing and changing and developing as well, people are following along with that. And it's super important, because it kind of shows our vulnerable side of, we don't know everything, but we're definitely learning as we go.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of a guy who might know Huntsville pretty well, I bet you Michael's been there once or twice.
I believe he has.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey, good for you, Kendall. Jimmy Thorpe, he's a gem of a guy. Definitely, working with him is a really good idea. I love him a lot, and I think he's doing a lot of good things, and he puts a lot of value out to the community, helping people out.
yeah. And I love what you're doing there, getting somebody to look at it as well. Like,
Mhm.
don't be afraid to ask somebody to look at. Don't be afraid to ask somebody to look at your LOI, right? Like,
Mhm.
hey, because I started off with an LOI when I started doing this. I started off with an LOI one of my mentors uses and gave me, and over time, I've severely scaled that back based off feedback I get from Tim, that I've gotten from a couple of trusted brokers that I have. And my favorite. My favorite analogy was, "Hey man, your LOI is keeping you from getting the date." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, you're not even getting the date. Like, you wanna decide what happens on the date in your LOI. Why don't you get the date first, and then we'll figure out, what base you get to in the PSA, that kind of thing. And
What a
I was like,
great analogy.
I was like, okay, that makes sense to me, right? Like, let's get to the PSA, right? Let's get the dinner first.
Yeah,
So
that's
that
funny.
don't be afraid to call and ask advice. Is my LOI keeping me from getting offers? I mean, getting deals, things like that. What's my deal look like? What should I change? What's your experience?
Yeah, and it's so important. Have the conversation with, like I preach this all the time, is when somebody that you're trying to build a relationship with, I'm speaking kind of directly about brokers right now. When they send you something, underwrite the deal and call them. And everyone has this fear of calling them and just having a discussion about the deal, right? Why telling them what you think, tell me why it works, why it doesn't work, et cetera, is so critically important because the broker might know something that you don't. I know for a fact that there's a deal that Tim and I were looking at, and we were like, nah, we're not going to do that. And then we listened to the broker, and the broker had way more information about it than we did. And that severely changed our underwriting and changed our LOI. And lo and behold, we ended up getting the deal. Awesome, right? Because you're willing to have that conversation with the broker, you're building that relationship. And who do you think he's going to bring more deals to now because we got it under contract and we're 100% closing on that deal?
Yeah, yeah, that's another thing. You want to know about deal flow? Be a closer. That's one of
Be a
the biggest
closer,
things.
yeah.
Be a
And
closer.
if you're not yet, partner with somebody that is, because you can say, hey, like, all I did was find the deal. This is the guy you got to be looking at. He closes everything.
Yeah, yeah, because one of the biggest things you can do for yourself, best things you can do for yourself, is when you get a deal under contract and you're working with that broker. That's how brokers get paid, right?
Yep.
So close, make their life easy, and if you make their life easy, you're going to be the first person they call when the next deal comes up before it even hits the market.
Hmm.
We got brokers now who call us that we have relationships with that call us when they're driving to a property to talk to the seller about if they even want to sell it.
Yeah.
They're like
Those are the
they're like
best.
I'm driving down here and looking at this property. It's 42 units, and I think this guy might want to sell it. If you, or would you be interested in this market? So before he even gets the agreement to list it, they're like, would you guys be interested if I get this? You
Yeah.
those are awesome conversations,
That is a really awesome
and
conversation.
it's
I have to
and
say, yeah.
yeah, and it's a little symbiotic too, right? It's like if we say, "Hell yeah, I'll take a look at that," then the broker can walk on that property and tell the sellers, like, "Hey, I already got guys lined up to look at this thing."
Yeah. And
So
be confident when he's saying that. It was like it's
yeah,
not a lie because I've had that conversation and they said that they were interested in this market and they would definitely take a look at it. So, that changes the whole conversation across the line because, the whole confidence thing. Like when you go in there and you're confident about what you're able to do and being able to perform on what you say you're going to do you have a little bit of a different strut to you, right? I mean, because you're confident. The same thing goes for the broker when he's talking to sellers, right? If he goes, no, man, I got a buy, I know the perfect buyer for this property. If you let me sell it, I promise you it'll be sold, right? It just changes the dynamic.
yeah, yeah, 100%. So, guys, like again, know your market, make those relationships, and be a closer.
Yeah.
There's a couple more steps I would throw in there if you really, really want to keep that deal flow pipeline going. We'll talk about that another time. There's the teaser, right? Like tune in
Yeah,
next
there
week.
you go.
Tune in next week.
Take the bait.
Yeah, but there's because it really is. It's a will. You want to
It is.
create a will that's feeding that funnel, and it all starts to feed itself. And when everybody talks about that hockey stick, your business taking off, or deal momentum. That's why it,
Yeah.
it it all starts to feed on itself. You do more deals, you get known as a closer. You make more relationships, you get more deals, you close more deals. It all feeds on itself.
Yeah. And the biggest thing is like relationships don't happen overnight.
No.
Tim Vest worked all of 2020 building relationships with these brokers. And, it was a year and a half of follow up until something actually culminated that we were able to do something with. And then once we did, that changed everything because it's like, man, I've been watching you grow and talking to you for the last year and a half. And now I see what you're capable of. Everything that you've said over the last year is true. And now you've shown it and you've proven to me is true. And then that's when that hockey stick growth continues to happen because there's this misconception that there's no good deals out there. No, there are tons of good deals out there. You just don't have the right relationships with people that have those deals.
Yeah, yeah. It was a year and a half of gourmet cookies, high dollar bourbon, and good wine.
Mm, mm,
those
mm.
those go a long way, man.
It
Showing
does,
people
man.
showing
It's
showing
thoughtfulness.
people you appreciate them, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Cool. All right, guys. Well, that's a quick show today. Well, I guess not quick. It's right on time. We get this question all the time about what are we doing to keep our pipeline full. To fully summarize this, we're not doing anything special. We're just talking to people. We're building relationships. We are focused on our markets and nowhere else. We don't have shiny object syndrome. We know what we want, and brokers appreciate that. We tell them exactly who we are. We are value add multifamily investors. And when I'm having a conversation with a broker and it's this brand new Class A build, I'm like, dude, I'm not your buyer for a product like that. I'm not like a stabilized, like I need value add in order to meet investor metrics. So, don't put anything in front of me that's not a value add, and I won't waste your time with anything that's not either.
Right.
It goes both ways, two-way street.
Yeah. So,
So, all right,
all right,
guys.
guys.
Yeah, good luck. Hope if you're at the event in Cincinnati this week, Mike Ely's, go up and say hi to Tim Vest. I'm sure he'll want to shake your hand and say hello. But otherwise, we will talk to you next week. See
All
ya.
right, guys. Have a great week.